Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Natira Kunja Bihari Bihari Janavallabha Girivaradari Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Amunatira Vanachari Punjabi Hari Punjabi Hari Vayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, we are on Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 28. Tato Vishesham Pratipadya Nirbhayas Tenatmanapo Nalamurtir Atvaran Jyotirmayo Vayum Upetya Kale Vaivyatmanakam Brihad Atma Lingam Tato vishesham pratipadya nirbhayas.
Sato vishesham pratipadya nirbhayas.
Tenatmanapo nalamurtir atvaran.
Tenatmanapo nalamurtiratvaram.
Jyotirmayo vayam upetya kale.
Ayumpetya kale.
Vaivyatmanakam brihad atmalingam.
Vaibhatmanakam brihadatmalingam.
Tato vishesham pratipadya nirbhayas.
Tato vishesham pratipadya nirbhayas.
Sena Bhagavatam Murti Atvaram.
Tenatmanapo
Nalamurtir atvaran.
Jyotirmaya Vayam Upetikale.
Jyotirmayo vayam upetya kale.
Vabhatmanakam Atmalingam.
Vaivyatmanakam brihad atmalingam. Tata, thereafter, vishesham, particularly, pratipadya, by obtaining, nirbhaya, without any doubt, tena, by that, atmana, pure self, apa, water, anala, fire, murti, forms, atvaran, by surpassing, jyoti maya, effulgent, vayum, atmosphere, upetya, having reached there, kale, in due course of time, vayu, air, atmana, by the self, kam, ethereal, brihat, great, atmalingam, the real form of the self. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. After reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly by the subtle body in an identity similar to that of the gross body, and one after another, he gradually attains stages of existence, from earthly to watery, fiery, glowing, and airy, until he reaches the ethereal stage. Purport. Anyone who can reach Brahmaloka or Satyaloka by dint of spiritual perfection and practice is qualified to attain three different types of perfection. One who has attained a specific planet by dint of pious activities attains places in terms of his comparative pious activities. One who has attained the place by dint of Virat or Hiranyagarbha worship is liberated along with the liberation of Brahma. But one who attains the place by dint of devotional service is specifically mentioned here in relation to how he can penetrate into the different coverings of the universe and thus ultimately disclose his spiritual identity in the absolute atmosphere of supreme existence. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, all the universes are clustered together up and down, and each and every one of them is separately sevenfold covered. The watery portion is beyond the sevenfold coverings, and each covering is 10 times more expansive than the previous covering. The personality of Godhead, who creates all such universes by his breathing period, lies above the cluster of the universes. The water of the causal ocean is differently situated than the covering water of the universe. The water that serves as covering for the universe is material, whereas the water of the causal ocean is spiritual. As such, the watery covering mentioned herein is considered to be the false egoistic. Okay, I'm going to read that again. As such, the watery covering mentioned herein is considered to be the false egoistic covering of all living entities, and the gradual process of liberation from the material coverings one after another, as mentioned herein, is the gradual process of being liberated from false egoistic conceptions of the material gross body and then being absorbed in the identification of the subtle body till the attainment of the pure spiritual body in the absolute realm of the kingdom of God. Sri Sridhar Swami confirms that a part of the material nature after being initiated by the Lord is known as the Mahat Tattva. A fractional portion of the Mahat Tattva is called the false ego. A portion of the ego is the vibration of sound, and a portion of sound is atmospheric air. A portion of the airy atmosphere is turned into forms, and the forms constitute the power of electricity or heat. A portion of the airy atmosphere is turned into forms, and the forms constitute the power of electricity or heat. Heat produces the smell of the aroma of the earth, and the gross earth is produced by such aroma. All these combined together constitute the cosmic phenomena. The extent of the cosmic phenomena is calculated to be diametrically both ways 4 billion miles. Then the coverings of the universe begin. The first stratum of the covering is calculated to extend 80 million miles, and the subsequent coverings of the universe are respectively of fire, effulgence, air, and ether, one after another, each extending 10 times further than the previous. The fearless devotee of the Lord penetrates each one of them and ultimately reaches the absolute atmosphere where everything is of one and the same spiritual identity. Then the devotee enters one of the Vaikuntha planets where he assumes exactly the same form as the Lord and engages in the loving transcendental service of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of devotional life. Beyond this, there is nothing to be desired or achieved by the perfect yogi. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I hope this is not on the final exam. It's technical, it's complicated. Yes, I could read that purport, parts of that purport 10 times, and I still wouldn't understand what's being said. Certain parts of the Bhagavatam are like that. You read it and it's like, I have no idea what's being said here. This is extremely complicated to a Kali Yuga mind. Maybe there's some people in Kali Yuga who have that level of intelligence or that type of intelligence to understand what's being described here. But most people won't be able to understand this technical explanation. And the good news is that it's not required. It's not required to understand this. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is describing the person who's becoming liberated. He says that one is passing in the, in the light, one is passing in the darkness during the dark fortnight, or like this, different technical times at which the spiritualist is passing away from this world, and one who passes away at this time by dint of their conscious, effort to pass away at that time, they achieve liberation. And one who doesn't pass away at that time, he goes to the higher planets or remains within the material, And then what does Krishna conclude by saying? The devotees are not worried about these things. because they're just dependent on Krishna for success. Krishna, I'm your servant. And so the devotee doesn't have to worry. Krishna's, he's the Bhakta Vatsala. He's the well-wisher of all living entities. What to speak of his devotees? How much of a well-wisher he is to his devotees. So the devotee doesn't worry about my destination. The devotee only worries about one thing. How can I become more and more fixed in my understanding that I'm a servant of the Lord, and always be in the attitude of trying to be a humble servant of the Lord and the Lord's servants, and Krishna takes care of all the rest. That's the difference between the path of bhakti and the other paths. The other paths very much are dependent on one's own capabilities and one's own arrangement of things for elevation, just like the path of Gyan. The path of Gyan, a person goes into the very detailed study of the scriptures, especially those complicated scriptures like the Vedanta Sutra, very complicated, presented in a sutra-like form, and there's very deep meaning in those sutras. And so the impersonalists, they're engaged in their life of austerity and self-control, and then they're engaged in their study of the Vedanta Sutra and trying to extract a deep understanding from the sutras, looking at the commentaries, looking at the indications of Shankaracharya, and they're trying to figure things out. What is reality? This is matter, this is spirit. This is illusion, this is reality. Very tedious process. Tedious process. And Krishna's asked in the Bhagavad Gita by Arjuna, which of these paths is most conducive? And Krishna says, this impersonal path, klesho dikataras teshan avyakta sakta chetasam, is very burdensome for the souls in this world because it's an unnatural process. It's unnatural because we have senses and we have a mind, and it's natural for our senses and our mind to be engaged, not to be restrained. And so the impersonalists, they're very rigidly trying to regulate, control their senses and their mind by an artificial process. Being very careful not to engage their senses with this world, because that's all they know. That's all they know, is that senses are material and senses are connected to material sense objects. Mind is material and mind is naturally connected to the senses and to the objects of this world, to material conceptions. They're bereft of the understanding of the personality of Godhead. So the devotees don't face any such difficulties, or they don't have to engage in that burdensome process. The devotees are offered the natural process for the soul, which is that the senses, rishikena, rishikesha, sevanam bhaktir uchyate. That's the very definition of bhakti, is to engage one's mind and one's senses in the service of the Lord. And who's the person who's especially noted for that? Engaging the senses and the mind. Ambarish Maharaj. Savaya mana Krishna padara vindayor vachangsi vaikunta gunanuvarnane. Each and every one of his senses and his mind were totally absorbed in the service of the Lord. And although he was in a position, like, what does it mean to be an impersonalist, impersonal path? That's it. You renounce the world. There's only one position from which you can practice that jnana system properly. That's from the position of a sannyasi, from the position of a renunciant. Not that you're absorbed in the world. I'm a businessman, I'm an engineer, I'm a working man, I'm a king. Forget about it. You're going to be a jnani seeking perfection on that path, and you're a king. Impossible. But Ambarish Maharaj was an emperor of the whole world. It means surrounded by all the paraphernalia that's typically used for enjoyment. Beautiful family, attractive wife, children, palace, jewels, respect, so many ministers, so many adoring citizens, a treasury which is indescribable, all of the things which will normally entangle a person. But Ambarish Maharaj was completely detached from all of it, not by any artificial process, not because he was very rigidly gritting his teeth and, I want to enjoy it, but I can't. No, the senses were fully engaged. Tongue was engaged constantly in glorifying the Lord. That means the tongue its engagement is fully satisfied. The ears were engaged in hearing about Krishna. The eyes were engaged in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord. And once one becomes attracted, accustomed, enchanted by the form of the Lord, then the material forms, they can no longer attract. They can no longer pull the eyes. Because compared to the Lord's form, what is this world? It's the realm of jada, dull matter. So how can dull matter attract the eyes and the mind of someone who's become enchanted by the beautiful form of the Lord? So in this way, all of his senses, all of his mind, his active senses also, the hands were engaged, the legs were engaged in taking him to the temple of the Lord. So there was no possibility of his being diverted. But that's because he was a pure soul, a pure devotee. Until that time comes, it's a practice. By force. Prabhupada says, by force, one must bring the mind back to Krishna. Because right now the mind's natural inclination is to wander off to any sort of material contemplation, material desire, just bubble up in the mind. Yes? And it seems like a good idea. And there's some feeling of enjoyment in that contemplation. Hey, there's a nice idea. That would be a pleasant thing to do. So the mind is an unlimited reservoir of ideas of how to engage with the material energy. Sometimes the mode of ignorance hits the mind, and some stupid idea comes about how to engage in an ignorant activity. Sometimes the mode of passion possesses the mind, and then the mind goes into a long sort of contemplation about how I'll enjoy, I'll exploit the material nature. And then the mind can get stuck on that and go deep into some fantasy about enjoying the material nature. And then in the mode of goodness, the contemplations can be of a much more refined nature. But in any case, for someone who's in this world, the mind has to be taken under control and directed again to Krishna. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. And then the bhakti yogi understands the mind has to again be fixed on Krishna. And the understanding, I'm a servant of Krishna. My dear Lord Krishna, you please engage me in your loving service. Please engage me in your service. Like that. So this is clear intelligence. The intelligence taking charge of the mind until one becomes advanced in spiritual life. In the advanced stage, it's effortless. The mind is just naturally drawn to Krishna. Just like the pure residents of Vrindavan. Their problem wasn't remembering Krishna. The gopis didn't have a problem remembering Krishna. They couldn't forget Krishna. Although their remembrance of Krishna was giving them so much so-called pain. They were experiencing so much pain, spiritual so-called pain. It's not pain, it's the highest ecstasy. But externally, it looks like these people, these souls are crying. They're just crying and crying and crying when Krishna left Vrindavan. That's all they were doing. They were just crying in remembrance of Krishna. How could Krishna have left us? Huh? So the problem is not that we can't remember. The problem we can't forget Krishna. We can't get him out of our mind. So this is the natural state of the soul, to be absorbed, immersed in remembrance of Krishna. And nothing from the spiritual platform necessarily makes sense to the conditioned soul. To a conditioned soul, we can read about the pastimes of separation of the residents of Vrindavan from Krishna. And we think, oh no, enough crying. I don't want to cry anymore. I want to be happy. I don't want to experience separation from the person that I'm attracted to. I don't want to experience separation from the person that's my beloved, because we can't understand what that is, what that reality is. That reality is incomprehensible to a conditioned soul. That's why it's so easily misunderstood. Even if one reads about the pastimes in the 10th canto, Krishna's, he's doing these activities which seem ordinary activities. He's grabbing the tail of a calf and he's being pulled around the courtyard. And this is being described to a person who's about to leave his body. Like this is the highest, the pinnacle. Like we've gone through all the other information that you need to have. We've gone through all the other avatars, fascinating, narrations of all the avatars of the Lord and all of the wonderful things they're doing, the power of God, Varaha diving very heroically into the depths of the Garbodak ocean, lifting up the earth on his tusk and saving the earth planet, and then getting into this fearsome battle with Hiranyaksha. And it's a wonderful, enchanting, heroic, mind-grabbing narration. Or the pastimes of Lord Ram, full of heroism and power and glory and majesty and might, and something which is very wow, really can engage the mind. Building the bridge across to Lanka, and then this fearsome battle between the monkey army of Lord Ramachandra and all the demons. It's like this great epic, right? Would make a fantastic movie. That's what it is. It's a movie. This is the real movie, right? Krishna comes as Lord Ram with his associates, and they put on this wonderful, wonderful drama. There was no need of it. No need of it. Prabhupada says that Krishna can kill the demons in any way. He doesn't need to come personally. He can just cause them to die, right? Send some powerful material force, they're dead. But Krishna comes personally and he enacts these wonderful leelas. He enjoys doing it because that's his nature. He enjoys to engage in these leelas with his devotees, to save his devotees and to vanquish the demons. So when one comes to the 10th canto, this is the pinnacle, the 10th canto. And what's happening? Krishna's covered with some mud in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and he's holding on to the tail of a calf, and he's being pulled around the courtyard. Okay, I don't get it. What's the significance? Why is that like the pinnacle of all things, right? Because he's Krishna. He's all attractive. And whatever beauty. And what is that pastime? Krishna as a small child. That's the pinnacle of cuteness, isn't it? What could be more cute? Like if you see a baby, they're very cute when they're walking in that clumsy way of theirs, or when they're doing some little activity. Suddenly all the adults are looking and they're just enchanted by the cuteness of an ordinary child. Or it's very common in social media. You'll find reels or videos of what? Little kittens playing with puppies, and people are enchanted by that. People can spend hours and hours watching videos of cute little kittens playing with cute puppies, because it's extremely cute. It's enchanting to the mind. So if that enchants the mind, that's just atava bahunaitena kim yatena tavarjuna. That's a spark of, is that the right word? Verse? A spark of Krishna's splendor, right? So that's the spark of the cuteness that Krishna has when he's enacting his childhood pastimes. But it's not understandable by a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul reads it and says, I don't get it. I don't see what all the fuss is about. Or reads other things and completely misconstrues them, misunderstands the pastimes of Krishna with his intimate associates, which appear to be like the activities of people in this world. But they're not. They're not. This world is the perverted reflection of reality. So we're engaged in the process gradually of taking our attraction away from the material energy and towards Krishna. And for achievement of success in that process, one has to follow the direction, the prescription given by the spiritual doctor. Prabhupada has given the prescription, and Prabhupada has given the entire formula. It's nothing's been left to chance. Just like in the beginning of the movement, when the movement had just started, let's say New York, and then over to San Francisco. What was the engagement of the devotees in 1960, 68, 16, maybe up to 69? What was their engagement? Mangalarti? No, we're going out on Harinam. They go out on Harinam for 8 hours a day. Go out on Harinam, chant in one part of the city, and then come back, take a big amount of prasadam, and then go back out again. They were going out till 1 a.m. chanting Hare Krishna. They were in ecstasy, of course, because they were chanting all day. Till 1 a.m. They were going out. There was no Mangalarti. There was no Bhagavatam class. There was not that regulated program that is now practiced in every temple. And then Prabhupada adjusted everything. And he put all the pieces in place. Here's the very regulated program, which provides everything that a person needs, every aspect that a devotee needs, that a practitioner needs. All the details are there, so that all the senses are perfectly engaged in Krishna's service, leaving nothing to chance. And at the heart of that practice, the most essential practice is to regularly engage the ears in hearing. By hearing, we are protected from becoming bewildered. And not only that, we're not only protected from becoming confused, but also the soul is nourished. The soul eats through the ears. We hear about Krishna, we hear about the devotees of the Lord, and we become spiritually nourished. And that spiritual nourishment gives us the strength to withstand the attacks of the material nature. Because that's what Maya is doing. Maya is testing the souls of this world. Most souls, they're just completely overwhelmed by Maya, just in the strong grip of Maya, in different modes of nature. I was distributing books, and one very intelligent guy was passing by. So you could see he was sharp. He had a book in his hand. He was into science. And he comes and I say, here's the book, here's the presentation. And I said, so please take the book. He says, I'm not interested. And somehow I got the idea. I said, your mind is not interested, but you on a deeper level, this is exactly what you're interested in. And somehow it clicked for him. He thought that was an intriguing idea, that, okay, my mind is, and I explained that everyone's mind is attracted to some different type of thing. They're naturally pulled to some different type of thing. But deeper than the mind is a part of us, the self. And the self is deeply attracted to what's in these books. And the guy's, all right, I'm intrigued enough to give it a shot, like that. So everyone is just completely enwrapped in some aspect of the material nature. When people go fishing, fishermen, they use different types of bait depending on what type of fish they want to catch. If you want to catch a shark, they put a certain type of bait on the hook. If you want to catch this type of fish or that type of fish, there's a different bait for each type of fish to catch each type of fish. So Maya also has a different type of bait to catch the souls of this world, right? And the souls are attracted. Oh, that's very nice. I'm enjoying this. This is very appealing to me, like that. And then the soul remains entangled in the material world, attracted by stuff which is inconsequential, superficial. And then there's few rare souls, very rare. Atapi te deva padam bhujadvaya prasada leshano grihita eva hi. There's a few rare souls that have been blessed by a drop of Krishna's mercy to understand this highest truth that God is the Supreme Person. It's very, very rare. Just like we were downtown in Mountain View and we met those people from the Self-Realization Fellowship, and they're engaged in some spiritual practice, and they actually look much happier than most people. It wasn't some slobs who were just totally covered over. No, they were engaged in a regulated lifestyle. They had their meditation practice, and they were experiencing some higher consciousness, some touch with the mode of goodness. And their aspiration was to experience the unlimited supreme, the impersonal aspect of the supreme. And they were getting some benefit from that. But it's very rare, very, very rare that someone can understand that the absolute truth is the Supreme Person. It's very rare. And that understanding can only come when one receives a drop of Krishna's mercy. So certain very fortunate souls, rare souls, have gotten that blessing to understand that. And their destination is the highest destination, to interact with Krishna in the spiritual world. Kaivalyam narakayate tridashapura kasha pushpayate durdan tendriya kala sarpa patali protkata damstrayate vishvam purna sukayate vidimahendra dis chikittayate yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam gora mevashtuma. That those who've received the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya, then they're getting something which makes all other accomplishments seem insignificant, inconsequential, which makes all other achievements pale in comparison. What's the achievement of the karmis? And who's a karmi now anyway? Where are the karmis? Everyone's vikarmi in Kali Yuga, but if there's a karmi, what's their achievement? They go to the heavenly planets. Will of the wisp, it's considered. It's just a place of entanglement. And then you have the yogis who are achieving these mystic powers, right? They've gained control over their senses. But someone who has received the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya, then the senses are no longer a disturbance. The senses are like serpents whose teeth have been broken. And then the impersonalists who are aspiring for that merging into the impersonal light, freedom from all suffering. For the devotee, that's better to be in hell. They consider that to be hellish because there's no possibility of interacting with Krishna. I'm going to go somewhere eternally without Krishna? No thanks, not interested. More than not interested. I'd rather be in hell with the chance to remember Krishna and maybe possibly render some service to Krishna. So this is the aspiration of the devotee. The aspiration of the devotee is to get the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya. And anyone who's engaged in the practice of bhakti, as per the disciplic succession, especially in this line, will eventually get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. But those who are assisting Lord Chaitanya to the best of their capacity, Lord Chaitanya is a gardener, yeah? And he has these fruits of love of God, and he's very eager to share those fruits of love of God. And he engaged his associates, his liberated associates, in the distribution of the fruits of love of God. And then he gave an order. I order every living entity to engage, to assist me in distributing these fruits of love of God. So if someone is taking the austerity, the effort to distribute those fruits of love of God, then Lord Chaitanya becomes pleased with that person. And the time will come when Lord Chaitanya is so pleased with that person that Lord Chaitanya will embrace that person. And when one receives the embrace of Lord Chaitanya, then one receives Krishna Prema, love of Krishna, Radha Krishna, the highest gift. This is the process, actually. This is the process. Our process is not to try to jump to Radha Krishna Leela and imagine something about my identity. I'm something special. I should meditate on being an associate of Radharani in the spiritual world. What is my position? I'm just pulled out of the lowest position in the material world. But if we assist Lord Chaitanya through the disciplic succession, then eventually Lord Chaitanya becomes more and more pleased with us. And for such a person, pure devotional service is guaranteed. And that pure devotional service comes in the form of perfection, an understanding my identity as an eternal associate of Radha Krishna in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions or comments, although I went over time? Yes,
I have a question about chanting, because in 12th chapter, Krishna says, my personal worship is better than impersonal worship. So when we are chanting the names of Krishna, it seems like a meditation, because I don't see Krishna. I'm hearing. It's similar to the study of Shastra, because just like Gyani study Shastra, trying to go deep into it. I'm trying to understand this mantra. I'm trying to fascinate or get enchanted by the sound of the mantra. It's very impersonal. So how do we say that this chanting is personal worship and it's not impersonal?
That's one way of approaching the chanting. And certainly if someone is not trained or informed, or if it's not explained to someone properly, they might take the chanting in that way. And certainly there are impersonalists who are so-called chanting the names of God, but they're chanting with that sort of idea in mind, that this is my meditation, and that this mantra is assisting me to realize my spiritual identity and to liberate me, and the ultimate goal is to become one with the Supreme. But that's not how we're trained to chant the mantra. We're trained to chant the mantra in a spirit of devotion. That Krishna is the Supreme Beloved, and this is my opportunity to reciprocate that love by chanting Krishna's name in a spirit of service, with a very clear understanding that the mantra, the name of Krishna is Krishna himself, and I'm approaching the mantra with the spirit of my dear Lord Krishna, personality of Godhead. I'm your eternal servant. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam. I've fallen into this material ocean. You please once again place me as your loving servant. That's the proper way to approach the mantra. So there's nothing impersonal in that equation. So if someone is taking it in an impersonal way, then they just need a little more education. That's all. Yeah? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu,
Yes.